Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dreamleapers with Harriet Cole. Well, we are at the end of Fashion Week that was like none other in the sense of we've had 2.5 years of COVID. This was the first season after all this time when people were really out and about. Like the rest of the world, everything was pretty much shut down. This week, folks came from all over, came to see the collections, hopefully to buy the collections, to see what designers are doing. And one thing that is very interesting that was noted in the press is that this season there were many designers of color, possibly more than ever before, or certainly in a long time, showing Harlem's Fashion Row, which helps to incubate and celebrate Black designers, uh, acknowledge 15 years of being in the business. Every single day of Fashion Week, there were Black designers featured all over the city. This is really unusual. But one person who's been in this game for a very long time and predating many, being celebrated by HFR, Harlem's Fashion Row, a few years ago, and really a red carpet wonder is how we think of him, is designer Kevan Hall. He lives and works in Los Angeles, but came to New York Fashion Week to make a beautiful fashion show that I was able to attend. And I just thought it would be great for us to talk to him about his show this season, his work, and this is Dreamleapers, his dream of being a fashion designer and how it is manifested in his career. So please join me in welcoming Kevan Hall.
Hello there, Harriet.
Oh, I'm first of all, I'm so proud of you. The collection was just beautiful. Not that we expected anything else, but your clothes, Kevin, not only look good on the runway, but when you go backstage or in store and you turn them inside out and look at them, they're beautifully constructed, which
Yeah.
is not always what happens on the runway.
Right, right. Well, that's an important part of it for me. It's about the quality, about the make, and we have an incredible atelier in Los Angeles that stitches all the clothes and a great team of pattern makers and that kind of thing. But then, like you said, it has to transcend beyond just that runway presentation, and it's got to hold up. It's got to hold up in the store. It's got to hold up on the customer, and that's important. And that's what creates that repeat customer when
Sure.
she knows that she can count on you season after season for something beautiful and for something that's going to last.
And, I mentioned in the open that we've been in quarantine. I mean, it
Mm.
just has ended and COVID isn't gone, but at least people are out and about. Uh, for your business, really anybody who's making clothing, this was a really tough time because if you're not going out, you're not buying new clothes to
Right.
twirl around in your house.
Yeah, exactly.
At least not fabulous evening gowns. Athleisure
Yeah.
became the thing, right? But not fabulous evening gowns. How did you survive that period, which has been
Right.
tough for
So,
so many?
yeah, so like many designers, we shifted into making masks, we shifted into making PPE wear, personal protection equipment, I should say. And, we donated masks and we were donating mask and PPE to the Drew Medical Center in South Central Los Angeles, to the UCLA Medical Center, to hospitals. And, it's interesting because my wife Debbie said we should just put something up on what was it, Etsy. We put masks up on Etsy. Now me, it's like
Wow.
I'm like I'm thinking of myself, I'm a designer, I'm couture. But we put those masks up on Etsy, and that kept the lights on and kept my employees. I was able to keep my folks on staff. We never shut down. We
Wow.
became a essential business, so we never had to shut down. We came to work every single day during COVID.
That is so interesting, Kevin. I know a number of other designers who did the very same thing. A friend of mine in New York, small designer, and her company's called Kess. She works on a lot of silks, and she started making masks and told me that it absolutely transformed her business because nobody was buying dresses. And
Right.
and by the way, if we're smart, we're going to still be wearing masks when we're in big crowds, for
Right.
the foreseeable future, which is what many people in Asian countries have been doing for years, just to
Years.
protect themselves, right?
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing that was kind of cool too was that some of the stores, These women, even though they weren't wearing the dresses, I had a lot of special orders. So they still wanted the clothes. And so even though in some cities they were shut down, well, not so much in Texas, and a lot of my business in Texas, we never shopped. We never stopped shipping our evening and
Wow.
cocktail and day dresses because they would go, even though the front doors may have been closed, the shipping department was open and they were delivering these clothes to these women out the back door.
See, those are the secrets that we don't know
Those are
about.
the secrets. Yeah.
They were having their, well, you know what? One of the things that people did was to have their little cohort of folks who they would spend time with, and not going out beyond whatever that group was.
Their little bubble.
Their bubble, right? That's what they called it. Their bubble,
Mm-hmm.
and you can be fancy in your bubble, right?
Fancy in your bubble, yeah.
I love that. I love that. So I want to go back because we've known each other for a long time, but in preparing for this interview, my team and I did some research, and I love hearing about how people get started. You've been in the business for a long time, but I'm a big believer in dreams. This program is called Dreamleapers. It's all about accessing and activating your dreams. And for some people like you, the dream comes early. And I'm curious about because I read that you were a little kid, when you thought, you dreamed that you would be a fashion designer. Tell us about that moment and what happened as a kid that made you even think you should do that.
Right. So as a kid, I would sit in front of TV or just sit at the kitchen table or whatever and just sketch. And I would look at old movies. I would look at the Sonny and Cher show. I'm dating myself, but I would look at those fabulous variety shows of that time and just kind of reimagine what I would like to see the stars and the actors and actresses wearing. And then my parents were so great because they would encourage me. They didn't say, go outside and throw a ball, go outside and, ride a bike or whatever. If I wanted to sit and sketch, they would encourage that. And they bought me all kinds of books and magazines and art supplies. And I would be creating and humming to myself and singing and sketching. And I like to say that, my mom was an incredible dresser. She loved clothes. She shopped at the really best stores in Detroit. There was a street called the Avenue of Fashion. That's where she shopped, and she took us there. And it was during that time, Detroit was a burgeoning community, a burgeoning city. You had the Motown music. So we were looking at Diana Ross. We were looking at Marvin Gaye. We were looking at the Marvelettes. All these fabulous people that were being groomed, and of course, we know what they became. They became superstars. But we were right there watching this, and that was a big influence. Yeah.
I bet, you say that, and I think my parents, I'm from Baltimore, my parents loved to party. They were on that sort of black social scene, black elite social scene in Baltimore. And my mother and father had a black tie closet, Kevin, where literally my father had his tuxedos made. My mother had evening gowns, evening shoes, evening bags, and jewelry. The shoes and jewelry were in clear boxes.
Yes.
And they were on that scene. So we saw beautifully beaded gowns and Bruno Mali shoes. And,
yes. My kind of gown.
All those fabulous things when we were growing up. And so, my sisters and I were exposed to that from an early age. And the standard was, for a man, you get it custom made. For a woman, you just find the best. It doesn't always have to be custom, but it has to be the best.
Has to be the best, yeah. And I often say that my first runway was the church aisle.
Oh yeah.
Because on Saturday night, we would lay out our clothes for church in the morning, and then that Sunday morning, that was it. We'd hit that runway.
And it was a runway.
It was a runway.
Well, still, in some places now. So now people are allowed to dress down when they go to church.
More casual.
I remember something when I was growing up. One day, it gets hot. I'm sure in Detroit too. It was really a hot and humid day, probably in August, and we were preteens, teenagers, and we did not put on our pantyhose because it was hot. Child, I never made that mistake again. My mother was like, you will go home and you will put that on, and you might get a spanking in between because you had to be head to toe appropriate. And that certainly was a training ground for many people. I love that you grew up immersed in the burgeoning of Motown too, because you
Mhm.
got to see
Yeah,
those incredible people building their careers who are now they're international icons forever.
absolutely. Yeah, it was just a great time. I mean, a stone's throw away from my house was Marvin Gaye. All these incredible. I went to school with um, Aretha Franklin's son.
Wow,
So it was just great.
that's something. And before we leave the early days, because folks will also know your brother, Vondi Curtis Hall,
Yeah.
that I, I'm thinking of him because as you say how your parents really nurtured your creativity, that just doesn't always happen. And I'm assuming they did the same for him.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they just told us we can do anything we want, be anything we want. We just had to work at it, put your mind to it, and go get it.
And so what was their work, your parents?
My dad actually, he had a company that was we call it it was a grading company, but basically it's landscaping and grading, and that is a company that he helped to build subdivisions in the Birmingham, Bloomfield Hills area, which is an affluent area. And if there were like lakes to be dug out or houses to be built, it's about grading off the land so that the drainage and everything kind of flows away from the properties. And he cleared land and that kind of thing so all the houses could go up. So,
Wow.
I know how to drive a tractor. We
Oh
can
my
drive.
goodness. You got a
Tractor.
you got a side hustle that you could do if you needed to.
I did. And, 18 wheelers. I mean, he had just huge, all this big land moving equipment is really what it was.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
And did your mom work?
And my mom worked. Yeah, my mom worked at a hospital. She was in charge of like the purchasing of that kind of thing, of linens and bedding and that kind of thing.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I love hearing the backstory. So as you were drawing and building these ideas about fashion, how did you go from drawing at the table to learning how to make clothes?
Right. So, I feel like I had a little bit of a head start because my high school is Cass Tech in
Famous
Detroit.
school.
Famous school, Cass Tech, where, I would say maybe it's been a few years ago, several years ago, that they had a 100th anniversary and they invited me back, everybody back, for this 100th anniversary. And they sent a list of some of the folks that had gone to that school. And it would just blow your mind away. I mean, Lily Tomlin, Diana Ross, some of our colleagues and peers and friends, Tracy Reese. I
Yeah.
mean, just so many phenomenal, entertainers and politicians and attorneys and television people, just tons of people. But anyway, my head start was there. And I was in the fashion design department along with some of my peers who are now working on 7th Avenue.
Beautiful.
And my first trip to New York was on a class trip with Cass Tech. And I mean, by the time that I was there, I knew that this was a career that could be had. I mean, I knew that I could, actually have a business or work for somebody and have a real career. So that was the path that I took. And then I enrolled at Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising in Los Angeles and moved to LA and started, working and building on my business, building a career, I should say.
So that's interesting on a lot of fronts. First of all, early education makes such a big difference, and Cass is a famous high school, as you mentioned. I think a lot of people know it. Uh, People choose often to come to New York, like to
Hmm.
FIT or to Parsons. You
Right.
chose to go to LA, and that school is also an incredibly successful, prestigious school. But there's often this back and forth, like where do I go? What
Right.
makes you choose LA?
I would have preferred to go to be in New York, but it just didn't work out. The
Okay.
things just did not fall in place for New York.
Hmm.
But I had entered a contest called Designer of Tomorrow, uh, uh, put on by the Fashion Institute, and I came in like first place. I didn't win, but I came like like first place or whatever they
Oh,
called
that's
it.
pretty good.
Yeah. And so that was what kind of moved me to Los Angeles rather than to New York. But like 3 days in, I met Debbie, my wife, of more than I don't want to tell you how long, but it was like the third. She was like the
3 days in?
third.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. So I was supposed to go to LA
You
because
were.
that was it.
Oh my goodness. That's incredible. I didn't realize that you'd known
Yeah.
her that long.
Yeah.
What a great partnership. So we're going to talk about partnership in a second. Let me tell folks you are listening to Dreamleapers with Harriet Cole here on WBAI in New York City. That's 99.5 FM and everywhere online at WBAI.org. We are talking about fashion. Fashion Week is just ending here in New York City. And there were lots of fashion shows, as there always are. This time, many designers of color, which is really a time of celebration, to know that that's true and that there's that CFDA and just in general, the fashion industry is being more inclusive, which we appreciate, which we do not take for granted. And even on runways, there are designers, but also models and behind the scenes folks, more people of color, more inclusivity and sizes. I mean, on every front than ever before. And right now we're talking with fashion designer, veteran fashion designer. I like saying that because he's been around for a long time doing beautiful work. Kevan Hall, who's telling us about his journey right now. So Kevan, I want to go back to your story, but right before that, because I mentioned what's happening now. Beth Ann Hardison was sitting on the front row at your show, as she always is. And a number of years ago, she really led a charge for Black models. Like, what happened to the Black models? They were sort of erased off of the runways for many years. And she led a charge to make sure that, Black people buy fashion. Why are we not represented in commensurate ways to the dollars that we spend? This year, you certainly had a broad array of models in your show, but many people did. Why do you think there is such a groundswell right now for Black designers, Black talent on the runway as well as behind the scenes?
Right. I think that I'm hoping that people have finally come to realize the importance of diversity, and also come to realize the impact that Black folks as a culture have made on the world. Yeah. When you think about music, when you think about the pop culture, when you think about fashion and how they, designers of every nationality will take a bit of this and a bit of that from our culture and from our style and our swagger, put it to their collections and make millions of dollars. I think it's time that we begin to own these things, and people are now beginning to realize that we kind of move the needle.
I think that's true. One of the things that I noticed in terms of styling at your show is that you were featuring these beautiful evening gowns in particular, which we love so much. And some of the models had natural hairstyles. Oh, yeah. That it wasn't all straightened hair, which, by the way, every look works because it's a designer's inspiration. But you featured models with knots and twists and braids with evening wear, which is something that's a rarity on the runway.
Yeah. But I think it's just, that's how women should look. I mean, a woman should be able to express herself in any hairstyle that she wants. And just because she's going out at night doesn't mean she has to do a press and curl.
That's right.
She should just be herself and be her authentic self, and pull her look together. I mean, she's going to, put on her great earrings, put on her fabulous shoes in her bag, beat that face and let that hair be natural. I think it's beautiful.
The fact that you had it, though, it was notable. Like, people that I was sitting next to were like, look at that hair, because it still is rare.
Wow, I didn't even realize.
Yeah, you see a natural hairstyle with an evening gown.
Yeah, I didn't really realize that. I just did what I thought was beautiful.
And we appreciate that you did that. So let's go back. You studied in LA. One of the things that many people know you for, which is, I think, historic, is that after the legendary designer Halston passed away, and he made such a huge impact. The impact still exists today.
Mm.
You came in, you were invited in to revive that brand. That is such a huge thing. I mean, so obviously there were steps leading up to it, but how did that marriage happen for you? Uh, because it was such a big step, right?
It was big. Yeah, it was big. I had a friend at the time that was working at Halston, and he was an executive there, and knew that I did great work in terms of like, on the luxury level.
Right.
The company they had started like a lifestyle level collection, but they didn't have the signature driving collection. So they asked me to come in and work really like as an associate designer at the time. So I came in and I worked, and we had a fantastic team and that kind of thing. And the collection just started to go and started to go. A little bit of the backstory: this executive eventually left, and but actually I left before they left because it was a little bit of tumultuous, circumstances, and it was a little bit crazy. I was very well treated, but it's hard to witness other people being abused. So I just said, I got to go. So I left, and like a month later, they released this other executive, and they asked me to come back and to head up the collection. So I was there, left, came back, and when I headed up the collection, that's when I really kind of took on all the reins of 22 licensees globally, designing all the collections, working with the incredible staff. Many of the atelier workers that had worked for Roy Halston Frowick came back. We had, Maruccia, the incredible Italian dressmaker and draper. We had, Carlo, the incredible tailor. I mean, all these guys, they came back. And so
who worked with the original.
Who worked with the original Halston. So I was that atelier. I was in hog heaven. I would just do a sketch and just toss it to him. It was just,
well, because he was known for having the best of the best to implement his creativity, which is what you need.
Yes.
So for you coming from being your own designer, creating your work, to have all of these resources, what was that like? It's also amazing. Managing a ton of people. I mean, there's a lot of responsibility in that.
Right. So, managing the people, making sure that things are flowing through the sample room properly. I had a great team, though. I had, fabric buyers, and I had, trim buyers, and I had all this. I just got to point. I like that. I want that. I like this. Let's do that. Wow. There's something wonderful about pointing.
I bet there is. Well, again, when there are resources, because a lot of times smaller designers, I mean, the big challenge is having enough money to get your ideas out there. But it's even more than that, because when I say resources, it's the money, but the people you're describing, you need the best of the best in order to implement those ideas. I've talked to many designers over the years, Kevan, who are smaller designers who don't have the good pattern maker or the people who really know how to sew those garments, like I mentioned at the beginning, so that if you turn them inside out, the seams are beautiful on the inside as it drapes beautifully on the outside. It's hard to find them and hard to afford them, right?
It's hard to find them. And even if you have the money, it's difficult to find, and then that's why people poach from different these good people kind of go from house to house to house because, you just can't find them. And I swiped a few, an incredible pattern. This is going back to Halston. I swiped an incredible pattern maker from Vera Wang and 3 of her sewers.
Wow. Thanks you for that.
She was not happy.
But that is how it works. And by the way, but that is how it works. And the industry is so small. Beth Ann often talks about how tiny the island of fashion is.
Yeah.
And now we get to see it more. People, who are not part of the industry get to see it because it's televised. The fashion show before the fashion shows were televised, only editors and buyers were able to even see what was being presented until it made its way into stores. And now people do get a bird's eye view, but it's
Right.
still such a small industry. And as it has changed, there used to be a lot more stores,
Mm,
luxury stores,
right.
where uh, whether they were individual stores in each major city that had beautiful clothing. Also, some of the elite department stores, we don't have as many of those now. How does
Hmm.
that affect you as a designer, as the just the retail outlets have changed?
Right. So you have to, nurture those stores that you have. I mean, you've got to get into those stores, find out what those stores' needs are, and really, kind of hold their hand and build a business with them. Just try to make it as strong as possible. And then, you're always kind of looking for new outlets, new stores, and new ways to get your product out there. And that's one reason that the internet has become so important is because the luxury and retailer has gotten smaller and smaller and smaller in numbers.
But how does it work for a luxury brand on the internet? Because don't people really want to try things on? I mean, does that work for you to sell online?
They have to kind of know the brand.
Mm-hmm.
They have to know the brand, maybe know the fit. Maybe they've gone into a fine specialty boutique in their area, and so now they know that they can count on the quality, they can count on the fit, and then they will order. But it's challenging, um, you know,
Sure.
on a luxury end. Also because you look at the price point. I mean, you're talking about dresses that can go anywhere from 1,000 to 2,000, $5,000. So
Right.
that requires, and the other thing too, as a designer, you don't necessarily want to, not necessarily, you absolutely don't want to get a return.
No, you do not. You
You
don't
do
want
not
that,
want to get
that,
a return.
that beautiful garment shipped back and forth for
Back.
any reason whatsoever. So it's tough. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
definitely.
a little tough.
So back to Halston. How long did you stay there, and what would you say were the highlights and the lowlights of that experience?
Right. So I was there about 3 years,
Mm-hmm.
and I would say that probably the low lights was it was disappointing that the company traded hands about 3 times while I was there doing that. I saw presidents come and go,
Wow.
merchandisers come and go. I was there the longest, than anyone, and then eventually sold, and it sold for a little bit of nothing. I mean, you could have literally bought the company for like a car loan. It was just like it went to the in receivership, it went to the bank. It was a hot mess, but that name is so strong, it was a
Yeah.
hot mess. But I would say that one of the most exciting parts of it was that after I stepped into the position, there was a lot of chatter, who is this guy from Detroit? Who is this guy from California? Fashion is very insular.
Oh yeah.
So people didn't know who I was, it was like, why is he even at Halston? Who's this black guy at Halston? Kind of a thing. And so a lot of chatter, but after that first collection, we rolled it out and we had Liz Tilberis on the front row. We had Andre Leon Talley, was there to support. Constance White. I mean, the front row was stellar. We fought to get the front row stellar. And after that first show, one look after another, 42 looks. I remember it was 42 looks. All words, all chatter was silenced. Um, Joan Kaner from Neiman Marcus ran backstage. She said, I didn't know who you were, but now I know. I'm telling all my friends. And after that, we got Windows and Neiman's and Bergdorf's and all these great stores. Joe Boitano from Saks Fifth Avenue was at the showroom. He was the president or vice president of Saks Fifth Avenue, was at our showroom 8 o'clock in the morning before the doors opened to write the collection. So it was phenomenal. So that was definitely a highlight, shutting the mouths of doubters and haters,
Oh
and
yeah.
seeing that collection receive the kind of accolades and the kind of retail placement that it received.
That's beautiful. Let me
Yeah.
remind folks, you're listening to Dreamleapers with Harriet Cole here on WBAI in New York City. That's 99.5 FM and everywhere online at WBAI.org. We are talking about fashion. I love talking about fashion. I grew up in fashion, having been the fashion editor at Essence and run Uptown and Ebony, and everywhere I've been, have looked to celebrate style. We're talking to fashion designer Kevan Hall about his journey in the world of fashion. And I just want to say to all of you, we are here because of you. WBAI has no advertising. We are fully listener sponsored, which is pretty amazing. You know, I'm talking to Kevin about how you build a business and how you have the resources. How you have a radio station like this is literally because of listeners like you. So, everybody in earshot, please know that we need your support in order to stay open. And that means we need you to make a financial contribution. Yes, I said it. That's what it is. So you can call us at 212-209-2950. That's 212-209-2950. And when you do that, you make a pledge of any amount. Just any amount at all will support us. There's no amount that's too low and no amount that's too high. So please call and make a pledge now. We appreciate you. And we want to continue to be able to bring wonderful guests on the air like Kevan Hall. And please help us to make that possible. 212-209-2950. Kevin, that experience and those people that you're talking about, Liz Tilberis from Harper's Bazaar, Constance White, who's been many places, but always at the top. And one of the very few, especially back in the day, African Americans on the front row. Andre Leon Talley, who recently passed away, but whenever he was at a show, it had a huge impact. Him being representing Vogue for so very many years, that had to feel great. That had to feel great that those people were there, and it definitely helped to sell that collection. Um, Also, the behind the scenes, even the behind the scenes for Halston himself was a mess back in the day.
Right. Yeah.
So,
It's a
right?
mess. Yeah, yeah. You know, it's just, that brand, I often see it's been relaunched more times than the space shuttle. That, and they're still at it and they're still trying to go. But, I had that window of time. I wouldn't have traded in a moment of it. It was uh, agony, but great at the same time. And speaking of Andre, he uh, put me in that style facts
Yes.
section that he had in Vogue. He did a really lovely write up on the collection. He brought Anna the next season. Anna was at the show on the front row, and we did a private showing for her of the first collection. He said, "You got to see this collection." So he brought her to the showroom, and we rolled out like a mini presentation of the show for Anna. So he was there and he was supportive, and he's greatly missed.
One of the things that many people don't know, Andre Leon Talley, just for anybody who's listening who doesn't know, he was the creative director at Vogue magazine for a long time and then editor at large. He worked hand in hand with Anna Wintour, who is the iconic editor in the world of fashion, being the editor in chief of Vogue and now editorial director of all of those publications over at Condé Nast. But Andre, as an African American man in the business, rose to be the best known African American in the world of fashion, I would say, bar none.
Mhm.
And behind the scenes, just what you described, Kevin, he would make these opportunities where he would introduce Anna Wintour to Black designers very quietly. People
Mhm.
didn't necessarily know, but he made these introductions, and it certainly did have a tremendous impact on careers.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And we
Great.
just lost him about a year ago, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not quite a year. Mhm.
So after you left Halston, what did you do?
So after I left Halston, I was commuting when I was working at Halston. I was commuting back and forth between New York and LA. So the family would come out for holidays. The kids would come out for the summer. I would go back and forth. But after I left Halston, I went back to LA, and it was some of those folks that I named, literally, that wrote letters of recommendation for financing to help me actually put together the money to start my business. And I went back to LA and I launched, Kevan Hall Company. And so those people that supported me in New York helped me in Los Angeles. Right when I moved back, we were able to pick up, again, Neiman Marcus and some of those really fine stores, and have that continuity of the Halston days.
That's incredible. And while you were working with Halston, you had so many, bold-faced names wearing your clothes. That must have helped even in the transition to your own line. Who were
Oh
some of
yeah.
the people who wore your clothes then and who wear your clothes now?
Right. So, back then it was Salma Hayek, Charlotte, I'm not Charlotte, yeah, Charlize Theron, Sharon Stone, Minnie Driver, and on and on, and so that moved on and when I launched my collection, Renee Zellweger
Great.
bought clothes.
And let us emphasize that because celebrities often they spend money on stylists, but they don't spend money on clothes all the time. They are
Yeah,
offered
yeah.
to wear clothing because it has such an impact. So thank you, Renee Zellweger, for buying clothes. That's a good thing.
And then Vanessa Williams, one of my favorites. I've dressed, and I always mention her because I love Vanessa. She's just a great style. And
Oh, yeah.
I dressed her for, Emmy nominations and that kind of thing. I put her in this incredible pistachio green feather gown before we were seeing feathers on the red carpet. She was the first one to step out of a car with a beautiful feather gown on, and the paparazzi went nuts, and we had
Oh,
full
fabulous.
page in LA Times, and I've dressed her for many things. I mean, just Halle Berry. The list goes on and on and on of beautiful women that have worn the clothes on the red carpet and support the brand.
And so, how does that work? Because there's so many things you have to do as a designer. You are designing the clothes, you are getting the clothes made and getting them delivered wherever they need to go. But courting celebrities is a whole nother job. How does that work?
It's a whole nother thing. It's a whole nother thing because so there, I mean, it's a lot of work. You
Uh-huh.
can, okay, listen, after the nominations come out, you can choose to go after their publicists, their managers, their stylists. You can do that. You can send sketches and offer to make them something special. You can, if you have a relationship, certainly you're going to go direct to them and say, okay, I've got this, consider this or that. And then you've got, the competition of every designer in the world that's flying in from Europe and from all over, setting up shop in, the Four Seasons Hotel, with a full atelier, courting them. And many of the actors now are being flown to fashion shows and Fashion Week. So it's just tough. But I've never had to pay, and some of the designers do pay to have the talent wear their clothes on the carpet, and they pay big bucks. And that actually all started with the jewelry company. The jewelry company started paying first, and then the ready to wear or the couture houses started paying or offering the talent, a year worth of clothes or a lifetime of fashion, that kind of thing. So yeah, but it's an important part to our business, I feel.
So, Kevin, in reopening and getting the resources that you needed and all that you needed in order to start your business to make it work, you talked about people writing letters and just being there for you. That still had to be daunting, to go out there when you had all those resources behind you, and now it's you on your own. Talk about how you did that.
Right. So, even before I went to Halston, I had my own company,
I know
but I
that.
kind of put it on hiatus. I took a really bad hit in, I think it was like 1992 or four, somewhere in there, when all these company mergers were happening. Federated gobbled up Bullock's and Macy's and all these stores that were merging. And after that, then they went bankrupt. And, and there I sit in the middle of this bankruptcy. So I mean,
Not getting money for the things that had been so-called purchased,
that have
right?
been purchased. Yeah. So I knew how the game worked, and I knew, how to have a business and how to run a business. But it was like this was like a fresh start after working in New York, which I had always really kind of wanted to do. Have that experience of working in New York, and then now having tapped into all these wonderful relationships with, executives and friends, and just great supporters and that kind of thing. But yeah, it still was daunting because at that point, I'm on my own with all this. Traction behind me. So now I got to be able to stay and continue to work on that level. So yeah, it was a little bit daunting, but we stepped into the task, and continued to have the support, and and many of those stores, as I mentioned, came back and bought the collection. So it was great.
And now it's been a number of years, and you're doing your thing, especially in LA.
Yeah.
The red carpet is everything. And I mean, I know that you make clothing for the entire day, but that evening wear that you make is just stellar. And is it primarily custom? Is it off the rack? Is it a combination of both?
Right. It's a combination of both. I mean, when I'm selling the collection, like the collection that you saw on Tuesday, we are in market right now as we speak. I'm sitting in the showroom, and we're expecting appointments, and we have appointments booked all week. And the stores are going to come in. They're going to look at the collection. They're going to write this collection for their clients and for their stores. We're going to go on the road and do trunk shows. I do trunk shows around the country, Texas and Chicago and Atlanta, and everywhere. We go all over the country doing trunk shows and working with private customers in the stores, and have the support of the stores. And then there's the custom piece, and very often clients will fly in from various parts of the world to my atelier in Los Angeles, and they will purchase their wardrobe or purchase a dress for a wedding or for a gala or for whatever their special event is, and also for day, because like you said, I do day clothes, and frankly, the day range of clothes is a solid part of my business, because with day clothes, you don't have to call home and ask. You just buy the dress.
That's right.
You know what I mean? You have to give it a lot of thought. Either you like it or you don't like it. If it fits well and you love it, the color's good, you're done. But the evening piece, sometimes it requires a little bit of thought, and let me think about it, and let me see, is this within my budget or whatever. So, yeah.
Let's talk a bit about the international clientele, because I know that over the years, there's tourism in America to just come and see the many sites and all the things that America has to offer. But fashion has become a pulse point for many people around the world, particularly Europe, Asia, and the United Arab Emirates. I mean, there are a lot of people who come here. Talk about your international clientele.
Right. So I have clients. Some of my favorite clients are like Saudi princesses.
Mm-hmm.
And they come to Los Angeles usually around June and July, because it's so hot over there. So
Yeah.
they come and they take their homes, or they book floors or suites, at the nice hotels on the west side of town, and they're there to shop. And they will come to the atelier, and they'll pick out clothes, to take back to their country. And very often it's they do a lot of evening and a lot of gowns and that kind of thing. Right. And then they will also do day pieces that are that we make for them long, because they have their traditional, their cultural things that they need to adhere to. So so that's part of the international. And then we've got through some of our stores, we have a wonderful store in Canada. Now we just recently dressed the first lady, not the first lady, I guess she's the wife, Sophie. What is her last name? Trudeau.
Oh yeah, of course.
Sophie Trudeau. Yes, Sophie Trudeau. Yeah. So we just shipped a dress to Canada for her to wear to a big gala, and so very often folks will fly in, or some of our international stores will request very special things for their clientele.
That's exciting. It's
Yeah.
when the world feels small because we're so connected. I want to remind folks you're listening to Dreamleapers with Harriet Cole here on WBAI in New York City. That's 99.5 FM and everywhere online at WBAI.org. I want to also remind you that we're in this together. Just like Kevin is talking about the fashion industry, you can't do it by yourself. You have a team, you have folks who support you in every possible way. Here at WBAI, listeners support us by putting your dollars here so that we can stay on the air. So we invite you to make a contribution today. The way you can do that, two ways. You can call us at 212-209-2950. I'll repeat, the number is 212-209-2950. You can also go online at give2, 2, WBAI.org. And why we constantly are reminding each other of the opportunity to support is because we do not accept ads at all. There are no commercials on WBAI. We've been here 62 years with no commercials, which is kind of uncanny when you think about it. We survived COVID. I mean, think when everybody was home, we were on the air talking. We survived fake news. I mean, that's a big thing to survive, okay? Because we tell the truth here, and it's because of you. So please join us in making a contribution today. 212-209-2950. We appreciate you. Kevin, this collection that I just got to see, the colors was so beautiful. The way that you had twists on some, classic ideas, like that beaded gown. There is a beaded gown, folks, that is like a column, a beautiful V-neck in the back, and individual like long beads that are like strands of hair that are a striation of colors. Talk about that dress. Just that. Oh, so pretty.
Yeah, well, that dress is really great. That dress was the finale dress, and
Yes.
that dress kind of spoke to all the colors in the collection.
Oh,
That was you. You had your fuchsia, your hot pink, your lavender, your yellows. All these beautiful colors that were in the collection were all it all came together in that hand beaded fringe dress. High neck, low back. I love a turtleneck dress.
yes.
I'll put a turtleneck on anything.
We love turtlenecks. Turtlenecks are good when we may not want to show everything that's happening with that neck. Just raise it up a little bit. That's nice.
Yeah, there's certain things that I love. Like I love a turtleneck. Okay, then I did a trench coat, but the trench coat was in organza, which I love. I mean, I did a beautiful gown skirt, and also a jumpsuit which had cargo pockets. I love those classic American things that you kind of mash it up a little bit and serve it again fresh.
Well, and I'm going to go into those a little bit more deeply, folks, because you can hear this, but the organza trench coat was like a canary yellow and yellow is my absolute favorite color. So there's this yellow, and then under it was almost like casual wear, except for the fabrics were not casual, but like a tank top and pants, right? Cargo pants.
Yeah, it was like a vest, sequin vest, and silk crepe cargo pants, and an organza coat.
It was delicious. and then the cargo skirt, if I recall it right, was that a fuchsia color?
It was a hot pink.
Yeah. Yes.
Hot pink, slim through the torso or slim through the hips, and then it went into a huge flounce of not really ruffles, just a huge flounce, and it had cargo pockets on the side. Now, when it goes to the store, some of the ladies may say, "Well, I don't really want the cargo pocket," but I'm trying to give them fashion.
It was really fun, and I could imagine some people may say, "What am I going to do with that pocket?" By the way, if you buy that with the pocket, don't put anything in the pocket, ladies. That's not for your cell phone.
That's not for that. It's just for the sake of fashion.
But it was really fun, and that look. What was interesting that one and the yellow had, even though the fabrics are super black tie, there was, an infusion of casual in there, right? Because we stayed home and people got comfortable in their clothes. And it was interesting as I was looking at the show, I thought, wow, he's incorporated some of these elements that are truly American fashion that are part of this kind of dressed down, but yet you're still dressed up.
Mm-hmm.
Which,
Yeah,
which,
not
which
so precious. I mean, yeah, not so precious. I mean, within the collection, there certainly were those dresses that had beaded bodices and taffeta skirts that'll take you to a fabulous gala. But I just love the idea of the juxtaposition between the casual and the luxe. I love that.
Now, you mentioned something, I think this is sort of insider. So for people listening, people show all kinds of things on the runway. Like some of those sort of fit and flare dresses were very short. And someone sitting next to me said, but that'll probably be delivered a few inches longer. But on the runway, there's the fantasy, right? Like, oh, well, I would wear that. And then in reality, customers kind of dictate, well, what will they actually wear? So how challenging is that for you to go from your creative inspiration to translating it for your customer?
Right. Well, even while designing them, the bottom line is that if you want to be in business, you got to sell.
Yep.
So I can, every designer can do a dress that's, plunged past the navel and slashed up, all the way up. But at the end of the day, you got to be able to translate. And so it's that balance between creativity and commerce.
Yeah.
And even just yesterday, after I showed the collection on Tuesday, I was working with a store yesterday, and basically I showed her the beautiful black pleated chiffon dress, and she said, "That is going to be lined, isn't it?"
Ah.
I said, "Well, of course it's going to be lined, but for the show, she just had on her her little brief, and that just created the illusion, of the sexy illusion that we were after. But yeah, the things when they go into the retail stores, they are a length that people can either wear it at a longer length, or they can make it as short as we showed it. But we want to give them the option, so we'll ship it long, and if they want, they can shorten it. And of course, things that we show with illusion, we'll put a proper lining in so that people can actually wear it and not, have their mates say to them, "You're not going out of the house in that."
Not in that. But we get to enjoy the illusion on the runway. So what are you looking forward to, Kevan, as you sell this collection and continue in your career? What are you looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to building my business and expanding the brand. With this collection, we launched a capsule handbag and belt collection.
Yes.
Yeah. So we had our beautiful new signature logo that we developed, which is going to be our belt buckle on all of our hardware on many of our products going forward. I just also launched a home collection of capsule again, beautiful candles, serving trays, and coasters, and that is going to expand into sheets and towels and linens. We're working on some partnerships with that. So I'm looking to really expanding this brand into a real lifestyle brand where my client can know that she can buy not only beautiful clothes for a day and take her through black tie and red carpet, but can just surround herself with my aesthetic from candles and home and all those great things.
And where can people go to find out more about Kevan Hall Designs?
So you can go to my website, which is kevanhalldesigns.com. You can follow me on Instagram, which is at Kevan Hall Designs. And you can follow me on Facebook, my Facebook official page. Find me on Facebook. And
everywhere. And by the way, everybody, Kevan is Kevan. Kevan Hall, Kevan. Kevan, congratulations on a beautiful collection. I hope you sell out over and over again. The clothes are beautiful, and your work is just excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Harriet. Always a pleasure to spend time with you.
Thank you. And to everyone, thank you for spending this time with us. It was great to talk to Kevan Hall about his inspirations for fashion. Take a look at his work, kevanhalldesigns.com. And until next time, have a great day and make it count.